G'day guys, I've got this yellow van here to look at and sort out, and interesting turn of events here that Jason isn't with me at the present time. With everything that's been going on around the world, we're not going to get too much into that. Jason isn't allowed to come to work at the moment. He lives about an hour from here and he works 4 days a week, and yeah, that was safe hand signals. He travels across, does his 10 hours a day and heads back home. Well, there's a boundary line drawn in the sand over where he lives, which means he can't come here. So he's going to be working from home, which means I'm in charge of pulling this van to bits. I'm then going to do some scribbles and hieroglyphics. And Jason is going to do the wiring and he's going to send it back to me and I'm going to fit it. Or maybe they'll change the rules and he'll be allowed to come back to work. Let's have a look at what we're going to sort out. Right, the first thing I did when I opened up in here is I removed the overflow bottle from here. That one, there's the overflow bottle. This is where electronics go. Wires, there's igniters. The ECU actually came out. It's got this big long loom. Here it is. Was mounted up on this panel here, which I probably should see if I can find. Still doesn't explain where that ECU was mounted. There's two suspicious holes there. No. That's the seat. That's the center panel. No. No. No way. That actually matches. I don't know. There's a chance that that's where that ECU was mounted on. I'm not exactly sure, but it's not going back there. We are going to tuck the ECU there like that. So we bring the wiring in, and what we do is we're going to whip a hole straight through here where these relays are, drop it down, around, and plug it into the ECU. This is all going through here. All these plastic covers are going. Jason will build a normal loom. He wants to know where the TPS is, which is there. We will be mounting some igniters with a normal Link or Bosch style igniter. Where are we going to mount it? Might mount it down there. Here's the crank sensor, the cam sensor, right there. So that's coming out. We don't need that in there. It's going to be in the loom properly. We'll put an idle speed control unit on it. This coil wiring coming through here will not be there. Oh, what else do we do? There's an alarm down there. That's probably fan wiring. This is actually a really early Crown engine. You see the dipstick goes through the cylinder head. I get the job of pulling it apart. I'll send photos to Jace. We'll decipher things like this wiring here. It appears to be the water temp. There's the water temp. Right, I've got stuff to do. You can see on this one, the throttle body has been modified in quite an interesting way. So it's had the lever system taken off it and mounted upside down as such, with a bit of an elbow here. I got 3 of the bolts out and I thought that's really cool, but getting this bottom one down here wasn't so easy, and I needed this out of the way to get to the bolt that's down there to take the plenum off, but you can get in under here fortunately. Cold start injector, there's the banjo fitting for it, it's under the intake manifold. That's coming out. We don't need that in an aftermarket system, so that's leaving. We all know how I feel about stuff like this, so we'll address that issue as well. Radiator, looks like a stock Hiace one actually, with a big fan. It's probably mounted too far away from the radiator to be ideal. It'll actually draw air, not through the radiator. It should be mounted much closer. In the back here, this, again, looking at the exhaust manifolds, you can see it's clearly a crown style exhaust manifold. That's the 131 crown. And those had the bell housings that were offset by 5 degrees on this back flange. And it's got an adapter sandwich plate, which were really common in the early days of getting these vans done. And this van was done years and years and years ago. There's a bush in there that's often needs changing. Gets rid of that play there. Just had a little bracket built on there to put the gear linkages on. Pretty good though. As I said, this van has been around for a long time. Again, looking down there, there's the oil filter housing off a 131 crown, and the wire came up and did a big loop. Where is it? There it is there. Here it is. There's along here. This right here. Along here. There it is. There's the oil pressure. It's just a light. And there is the wiring for the temp gauge. So what Jace will do is he'll tap into the temp, tap into the oil down the front, and he'll just drop them across here. But he's going to bring them over here as well, just in case it goes into a different model Hiace at any time, or the loom gets changed. So he'll bring them into here. Where are we going to put the igniters? Jace, where are you going to put the igniters? Shit, it's quiet without him here, isn't it? I actually wonder if we put the igniter down here. Down here, eh? I better give him some measurements. On some Hiace, I've actually mounted the power steer reservoir in the original spot, but it is a bit of a pain actually. So I think it's better to do what this one's been done and had it remote mounted over here. There's a bit of room in here. It does bring me down. There's a couple of vacuum units in here, so I'm going to check all that is working like it should. It hasn't been connected at all. So we're just going to check that it's not causing a restriction. There's a bit of tape on here. I don't really like that. We might look at getting a replacement one of those. The factory airbox actually works pretty well for these V8s. We will, however, be plumbing this breather into the air intake properly. Possibly through the tube where that is. Make a fitting, plumb it into there. You can probably turn it around or something, spin it around. We just put a tool in and turn that. But I'm a little concerned here. New engine. That doesn't look like it's been changed. It's hard. Bit of oil leaking there. Not very nice oil. And a heap of silicone up the side of the tappet cover. It's actually oozing the whole side of the tappet cover, so it may not have had tappet cover gaskets, which really isn't ideal. It's quite dirty in the intake, and that PCV valve grommet is hard as rocks, and that PCV valve is yucky. A lot of oil and crap around it. Quite low in oil, and the oil is really disgusting in this engine. It is totally full of fuel, and that's why we're looking at rewiring it. A lot of engines that we rewire, they have an issue, and the issue is in the wiring of that ECU. If the connections aren't good or the wiring isn't in good order, you're not going to get good results. And I've often said that if you have even a poor brand of ECU, wired correctly and set up correctly will work fine. And if you get a good quality ECU and it's not set up properly and the wiring isn't good, then it's going to perform poorly. So a lot of it comes down to the installation. This fella here, I'm going to take this banjo fitting off, and I'm not going to do it by hand. I'm going to get my 22 millimeter spanner. I had actually already cracked it off. I thought it was going to be loose enough. Now guys, we'll have a bit of a look in here. Again, I had a guy caught out. Take this out. So this is your fuel dampener, as opposed to this one with the vacuum hose on it being the fuel pressure regulator. Vacuum hose, pressure egg. This is the dampener. Now they play a little trick. See over here? You get the washer. If you put a normal washer on there, it won't allow the fuel to flow into the dampener. I didn't undo this 10mm there. So if you place a normal washer like this over there, if it does actually seal up, it also stops the fuel flowing into the engine. Okay, so don't do that. Make sure that it has that castle internal castle type washer up against the dampener like that. Now I've actually got to this point. Oh, there's no grommet down there. Where that comes through, there's no rubber grommet. And the crank sensor isn't in here. Nope. Nope, nope. Here's a lot going through this hole. There's got to be a crank sensor wiring here somewhere. It's going to be that one, isn't it? Yeah, that's got to be it. I'm hammering along. I've got this loom this far. There's the factory Hiace starter. It had a couple of emission things in here. And then it's had this loom. This is for gearbox. It's like the gearbox remote plug. And that would have been like a vacuum solenoid. And this one of these goes to the carburetor. Because this was a carbureted van. It had an RZ. Was it a 2RZ? Yeah, it was a 2.4 petrol. When we get down into here, I got the fan wiring out. I found the fan wiring. That's good. And here's our two fuses. And we don't worry about exposed wires on power cables, do we? That's not a problem. We might not run it like that, eh guys? And here's our relays. There was an earth in there. And that wire there. It goes out and down under here. Must be the fuel pump. But what I don't have is where the ignition taps in. Maybe there's something down there I don't know about. Right, let me keep looking. I'll get rid of this wire. Try and find the ignition input. Look at this. Here it is. See here? That's the van. So that's got start in it. And there's this one. Come through here. There it is. That's my one ignition input. So does this fan not have a tacho? Oh. I wish I'd checked if the tacho's working now, because I don't seem to have an output anywhere for a tacho. Alright, at least I found the ignition input. While I've been doing this job, I've been sending little mini videos to Jason. He's been asking questions. I've got my tape measure. And we're going to do some measurements. And then he will just magic up a loom. And we try our hardest to make them a standard type loom. So it will have all 8 injector outputs coming back by the ECU as individual outputs, as individual wires. And that way, if we ever swap to like a G4X, we can. He will put a fuel pressure sensor wire in, even though this ECU doesn't run one, and wires for the oil pressure and oil temp. Again, even though this one doesn't run one, but it can later. This vehicle doesn't have an air temp sensor, and this is the later model, early Link. Like it's a Gen 1, but it's a version 5. It was the last of them. So he will fit in an air temp sensor as well. Not quite sure where. Not sure where at all, but we will be putting one in. So there's the loom out, disconnected. I did actually find the input, oh not that one, that one. 2 wires there, one unplugged, one was hardwired. So I think that's probably my tacho. And that's my my ignition input. I've given Jason instructions. I'm going to call this one good for now and wait for a loom to arrive and come up with a plan for that bottle. I normally put them over here, but I don't want it in here next to the ECU. I don't want it near a battery. We'll find somewhere to put that. I hope this has been a little bit helpful on not just on the wiring of this, but other little tips and tricks if you're doing a Hiace. And general conversions, this stuff applies. This thinking, the process is all the same to me. Doesn't matter what vehicle it is. So, life's a bit tricky for some of us, but we just make the best of what we can. I bought my notepad in here. I made no notes at all, because it's all just pretty normal stuff, nothing unusual at all that I need to remember, that I can't just work out by looking at this one. But you can remember that I do this a lot, and Jace does it a lot as well. So Jace will just flick into life. I've sent him some messages, I've sent him some videos, got some instructions, he'll ask some questions. He's not even going to see this wiring loom. Relays and fuses will be just our standard set, because we set them up to run all the same sets of relays and fuses if we can, and that keeps it real simple. I should tell him we want a wideband plug in it, but hey, all pretty well straightforward. Hope that's been helpful. Talk to you again soon. Catch you later.